And there was very little known, a lot about the social structures of some of the different monkeys there. Very little known about it.
Viewers are stunned as shocking new details surface about Mireya Mayer from Expedition Bigfoot. The wildlife scientist known for her fearless jungle expeditions has suddenly gone quiet, and insiders claim something happened behind the scenes that she never wanted made public. Rumors began when her team noticed a drastic shift in her behavior during the last field investigation. Something she reportedly encountered deep in the forest left her shaken in a way fans have never seen. As crew members began whispering about what she discovered, producers tried to keep the footage locked away, but a recent leak suggests the truth is far more disturbing than anyone expected. Before we reveal exactly what happened to Mireya and why she may not return to the next season, make sure you subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any updates on the mystery. The situation reportedly escalated during a late-night investigation deep in the Blue Ridge Wilderness when Mireya separated from the crew for what was supposed to be a brief perimeter sweep. Minutes after she stepped beyond the tree line, her radio crackled with static and then went completely silent. For nearly 9 full minutes, the team couldn't reach her. An incredibly dangerous window of time in an environment known for predators, unstable terrain, and unexplained activity the show has documented for years. Crew members later admitted that those 9 minutes felt like hours, and several were preparing to initiate an emergency search when her radio suddenly came back on. But instead of her usual steady tone, her voice sounded shaken, trembling, and strangely hollow, as if she had just witnessed something she couldn't comprehend. She told the team not to move, not to call out, and to stay absolutely still. Moments later, she emerged from the dark tree line, stumbling slightly, her clothes covered in dirt, mud streaked across her shoulder, and one sleeve visibly torn. Those who saw her up close said her face was pale and her eyes wide, like someone who had just encountered something they were trying hard to rationalize. When asked what happened, Mireya avoided the question entirely, refusing medical help and insisting she just slipped on an incline. But her body language told a different story. She kept looking behind her, scanning the woods, flinching at snapping branches, and clutching her equipment, as if expecting something to reappear. A producer tried pressing her for more details, but she quietly muttered, "It wasn't an animal," before going silent again. The rest of the night, she stayed close to the campfire, barely speaking, visibly unsettled. Crew members later reported that her uneasiness changed the mood of the entire expedition, and several believed she had seen something she wasn't ready or allowed to talk about. According to those close to the production, things only became stranger in the days following Mireya's unexplained moment in the woods. Crew members started noticing subtle but unmistakable changes in her behavior. Normally confident and analytical, she began double-checking her gear repeatedly, tightening straps, cleaning lenses, and reloading batteries even when they were already fresh. Some said she barely slept, staying awake long after the others had turned in, sitting by the fire with her back to a tree, shining her flashlight into the darkness every few minutes. What worried the team most, however, were the new rules she quietly imposed. She insisted no one walk alone, even for basic tasks like gathering firewood or checking a nearby trail. She warned the camera team to keep their lights low and avoid pointing them toward a specific ridge she refused to talk about. One crew member claimed she confided in him late one night, saying she heard something following her since the incident. Footsteps that matched hers, stopping when she stopped, but never showing itself. Another said she had captured something unusual on her thermal camera, but immediately deleted it, telling the team some things shouldn't be recorded. These unusual behaviors, combined with her growing tension, led several members of the expedition to believe that whatever she encountered alone was still somewhere nearby, quietly watching. Even the forest seemed different, quieter, heavier, as if reacting to the shift in Mireya's energy. By the end of the week, the entire crew felt like they were no longer just documenting the wilderness. They were being observed by something they didn't understand. The turning point came during a routine daytime hike to survey an area Mireia had previously marked as sensitive. She didn't want to return, but producers insisted they needed more footage from the spot, especially after noticing how tense she became whenever the location was mentioned. As the team approached the ridge, Mireia grew visibly uneasy, slowing down and scanning the trees with a precision that suggested she wasn't just being cautious. She was anticipating something. The moment they reached the clearing, she stopped abruptly. The ground showed deep impressions, larger than any human footprint, and spaced far apart, as if whatever made them had an enormous stride. The prints were fresh. A cameraman began to film, but Mireia quickly stepped into frame and told him to stop. She crouched down, examined the tracks closely, and her expression shifted from fear to recognition, as though she had seen these before. When one of the producers pressed her to explain, she stood up and said, "We have to leave, now." But before anyone could move, a sudden crack echoed from the tree line, a heavy branch snapping under weight. Everyone froze. Mireia grabbed the nearest crew member by the arm and pulled them back, whispering, "It's circling us." No one saw anything, but the feeling of being watched was overwhelming, and the group slowly backed away from the clearing. As soon as they retreated far enough, Mireia demanded they avoid the ridge entirely for the rest of the expedition. She refused to say what she recognized in those tracks, and the producers, sensing her genuine panic, reluctantly agreed. Still, rumors spread quickly. Several crew members believed she had seen something during her 9-minute disappearance, something that had now returned to the same location, leaving enormous footprints as a warning. The tension only escalated after the ridge incident, and, by then, everyone on the crew noticed that Mireia was no longer operating like the seasoned scientist they were used to. She became unusually protective of the group, positioning herself at the back during hikes, constantly scanning for movement as if guarding against something trailing them. At night, she barely slept. Several crew members reported waking up to find her sitting upright, listening intently to the woods, gripping her headlamp like she expected to use it at any second. Her paranoia seemed justified when the team started experiencing anomalies of their own. One night, a sound tech swore he saw a tall shadow move behind a cluster of trees, only for his thermal camera to show absolutely nothing. Another crew member reported hearing low, rhythmic breathing from the darkness, but when they pointed their flashlight toward the sound, the forest fell dead silent. The most disturbing moment came when a cameraman found one of their motion sensors ripped from a tree. Pulled down with such force, the metal bracket had twisted. Mireia examined it and quietly said, "This wasn't an animal, and it wasn't the wind." Her comment sent chills through the group. Despite pressure from the producers, she refused to explain further, insisting only that they needed to move their campsite farther away. By this point, arguments were breaking out behind the scenes. Some crew members wanted to leave altogether, while others believed they were closer than ever to capturing groundbreaking evidence. Mireia, however, stood firmly against pushing deeper. Her behavior wasn't driven by curiosity anymore. It was driven by fear. She confided in a single producer that she believed whatever she encountered was not only intelligent, but aware of them, studying them, and intentionally staying out of sight. That revelation spread quickly, and within hours, the entire crew began second-guessing every sound, every shadow, and every movement in the forest. By this stage of the expedition, Mireia's fear had shifted into something more alarming: urgency. She began insisting the crew stick to tight formations during hikes, refusing to let anyone wander even a few feet away. What unsettled the team most was her sudden decision to stop documenting certain areas altogether. She claimed some locations were active zones and warned the producers that filming there would provoke a response. At first, they dismissed her concerns as stress, but that changed after a chilling incident near a narrow ravine. While setting up equipment, one of the newer crew members wandered ahead to adjust a camera angle. Seconds later, he let out a terrified yell. When the others rushed forward, they found him backed up against a boulder, shaking violently, insisting something massive had just moved past him. But whatever it was, left no tracks, no heat signature, and no visible trail. only a lingering foul odor that several crew members compared to rotten vegetation and wet soil. Mireya examined the area for a long moment, without saying a word. Then she told everyone to pack up the equipment and leave immediately, refusing to approach the ravine again. Later that night, after hours of silence, she finally admitted that the new crew member's description matched what she encountered during her 9-minute disappearance. She didn't reveal details, but she said the creature, or whatever it was capable of moving silently, watching from extremely close distances, and choosing when to reveal itself. She warned that if they stayed longer, it might become more aggressive. That statement rattled even the most skeptical members of the team. Producers sensed that something was deeply wrong with Mireya's mental state, but the rest of the crew began believing the opposite, that she knew exactly what she was talking about. Tension grew, not just from fear, but from division. Some wanted to push forward and capture definitive proof, while others insisted they were stepping into something beyond their understanding. The breaking point arrived late one night, when the team's perimeter alarms, devices designed to detect movement and heat signatures, began going off one after another, forming a perfect circle around the campsite. First one beeped, then another, until nearly every sensor was flashing red. At first, the crew thought it was a malfunction, but Mireya immediately grabbed her flashlight and whispered, "It's here." When a producer asked what she meant, she pointed toward the tree line and said, "It's surrounding us." No one saw anything, but the air felt heavy and charged, like the forest itself was holding its breath. A cameraman raised his night vision lens and caught what he described as a tall, upright figure shifting between two trees, too fast to capture clearly, but undeniably there. Moments later, the equipment began failing one by one. Thermal cameras froze, battery packs drained, and several microphones picked up a deep, low-frequency hum that technicians couldn't explain. As panic spread through the crew, Mireya ordered everyone to extinguish their lights and stay low. The producers hesitated, arguing they needed visuals, but the look on her face told them she wasn't making suggestions. She was trying to prevent a disaster. For nearly 20 minutes, the alarms continued to trigger in a slow, methodical pattern, as if whatever was out there was circling them again and again. Then, just as suddenly as it began, everything stopped. The sensors went silent. The forest returned to normal. Mireya stood up slowly, scanning the dark with an expression of exhausted certainty. She told the producers they needed to shut down filming immediately and leave the area by morning. No one argued this time. The crew packed their gear in near silence, rattled by what they had just experienced. But what disturbed them most wasn't the alarms or the equipment failure, it was the realization that Mireya had known this moment was coming long before it happened. The following morning, the crew broke down camp at record speed, but Mireya was already awake, pacing the perimeter long before sunrise. She kept glancing toward the dense forest beyond the tents, her shoulders tight, her hand gripping her radio like she expected it to fail again at any moment. When the producers asked if she slept at all, she simply said, "It was close last night." That answer was enough to silence everyone. As they began the long hike out, Mireya insisted on walking in the center of the formation, constantly turning around to check the rear, as if guarding against something she believed was still nearby. The deeper they went down the trail, the stranger the forest became. There were no birds, no insect buzz, not even the distant rustle of small animals. It felt like the woods had been emptied overnight, or like everything had gone silent, because something larger was moving through the area. Several crew members whispered that the atmosphere felt wrong, like the forest was waiting for something to happen, and they weren't imagining it. A mile into their descent, a sound tech spotted something on the trail ahead. Enormous impressions sunk into the damp earth. They were deeper than any footprints the crew had ever documented. Large, wide, and spaced far apart. Far too far for a human stride. Mireya crouched to inspect them, her expression darkening. She didn't measure them. She didn't photograph them. She just whispered, "It's tracking our exit," then stood up and urged everyone to move faster. But the most terrifying moment came 30 minutes later. As the crew rounded a sharp bend, they froze. A massive tree, thick, healthy, easily several decades old, had been snapped in half about 6 feet off the ground. Not cut, not fallen. Snapped. The break wasn't from weather or decay. The wood was twisted, fibers spiraling outward, as though something with tremendous strength had grabbed it and wrenched it apart. The impact shattered equipment cases when the team tried moving around it. A clear sign the force used was unnatural. Mireya's reaction was immediate. She backed away, shaking her head, saying, "It's warning us. It doesn't want us here anymore." This triggered a heated argument. The producers saw potential groundbreaking evidence, something that could redefine not just the episode, but the entire series. They wanted close-up shots, samples, thermal readings, everything. But the rest of the crew refused to even approach the broken trunk. One cameraman flat out refused, saying he felt watched the entire time since leaving camp. Another said he kept seeing movement behind them, like a shadow drifting between trees at the edge of his vision. Mireya cut through the argument, insisting they take the long detour, an additional 4-hour loop, to avoid passing directly by the snapped tree. She stated plainly, "If we go through there, it'll follow us closer. It's staking territory." The detour pushed them through rough terrain, steep inclines and dense underbrush, but even then, the unease didn't lift. Twice, the team heard distant knocks, loud, deliberate strikes echoing through the forest, each one causing Mireya to freeze. She later admitted that the knocks weren't random. They were positional signals. Someone, or something, was communicating. When they finally reached the extraction point, the entire team was drained. The sense of being watched only faded once the vehicles were in motion, and miles of forest lay behind them. But the experience didn't end there. Back at base, the producers began reviewing the audio captured during the night. The alarms went off. Hidden under static, wind, and low-frequency interference was a terrifying discovery. A pattern of heavy, rhythmic breathing, slow, controlled, deep, and close. Close enough that several microphones picked it up simultaneously. Mireya listened to the playback once, her jaw tightening as the room filled with the sound of something huge, inhaling and exhaling just feet from the equipment. She didn't wait for discussion. She pushed her chair back, stood up, and walked straight out of the room without saying a word. When the expedition ended and the crew returned home, Mireya didn't resume her normal routine. Friends and colleagues noticed the change immediately. The fearless scientist who once trekked through some of the most dangerous environments on Earth now avoided forests altogether. She canceled upcoming field appearances, postponed public speaking events, and quietly stepped back from several projects she had been leading. According to one insider, she refused to even discuss the final days of the expedition, shutting down any conversation that hinted at what happened in the woods. But the story didn't end there. Several weeks after returning, producers reviewing unused footage found something disturbing. Brief clips of Mireya glancing into the darkness during the nights leading up to the alarm incident, as though she sensed something long before anyone else did. In one clip, captured accidentally on a background camera, Mireya can be seen standing completely still, staring into the tree line for nearly 2 minutes without blinking. When a crew member called her name, she startled violently, as if she had been in some kind of trance. This raised questions within the production team. Had Mireya been hiding signs of fear earlier than she let on? Or had the encounter changed something in her permanently? Things became even more unsettling when a sound engineer enhancing the audio from the final night discovered a second layer beneath the heavy breathing already documented. It was faint, but unmistakable. A deep, guttural growl, almost like an attempt at low-frequency communication. The chilling part? The growl wasn't directed at the equipment. It was directed at someone standing nearby. Mireya was the closest person to that microphone. When the producers informed her about the second recording and asked if she wanted to hear it, she reportedly refused and left the meeting immediately, saying only, "I know what it is. I don't need to hear it again." Soon after, rumors began circulating that she had received private messages from members of the crew who believed the presence had followed them home. Strange noises outside their houses, shadows at the edge of their property, or unnerving knocks on walls late at night. Whether those claims were real or fueled by paranoia, no one could say. But what is certain is that Mireya distanced herself from the entire team and cut off contact with several producers. Insiders claim she warned them not to return to that specific location in the wilderness, saying the creature wasn't just territorial, it was intelligent, aware, and capable of tracking individuals long after they left the forest. Eventually, the network quietly shelved portions of the footage, labeling them too sensitive to air, and Mireya's involvement in future expeditions was suddenly placed on hold without explanation. Fans have noticed her absence and are now asking what really happened to her during those missing 9 minutes in the woods, minutes she has never spoken about publicly. Whatever she encountered out there changed her, possibly forever. And until she decides to tell the full story, the truth about what happened to Mireya Mayer may remain one of the most unsettling mysteries Expedition Bigfoot has ever faced.